following is a local resident producer's program. The program content is the sole responsibility of the producer and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of CATV2, Oshkosh Community Media Services, the City of Oshkosh, or Time Warner Cable.
Hi everybody, welcome to Eye on Oshkosh. Cheryl, Hentz, and Dan Rylance here, and we're very happy on this edition to welcome Norm Leatherwood to the program. He's the Office Director for World Relief-Oshkosh, or your business card says World Relief-Fox Valley.
Fox Valley, that's right.
All right, okay. You know, Oshkosh has a history, I think, of helping to bring in and resettle refugees from other countries, and I know that my church is currently involved in helping to settle one family, or do you say settle or resettle?
Resettle.
Okay, resettle one family. And so we wanted to have you on the show and talk a little bit about what you guys do and why you do it and why it's important and how folks can get involved in the cause. So again, welcome. We're appreciative of you being here. Let's I guess start out by just getting a little background. How long has World Relief-Fox Valley been in the Oshkosh area or the Fox Valley area?
That's a good question. World Relief is an international organization that's existed for about 60 years now. But World Relief Fox Valley opened its doors at the middle of January, and we received our first refugees here in Oshkosh at the end of February. Since then, we've had 85 new arrivals come to town.
Okay. And what countries are they coming from?
Most of the refugees currently are coming from one of three places. They're coming from either Bhutan, and we've not received any Bhutanese, from Burma, and we've received about 30 from Burma and from Iraq.
Okay.
And there's quite a diversity among those two groups. The Burmese basically have been fighting wars with their minority language communities all around the borders of Burma. And so we have three distinct cultures that came here from, it's called Myanmar, now the Chin, the Shan, and the Karen people here in town. Iraqis, of course, are coming from a very fractured and complicated political environment in which we've been enmeshed for a good many years. We have Iraqis coming who are Shia, Kurd, they're also Sunni. A lot of them have been working with the Americans and have been endangered because of it. So,
Okay.
But that's not the only ones, Cheryl. We have a smattering of many people from around the globe. We've got a family from Afghanistan, we have Somalis and Eritreans and Ethiopians, a Cuban family coming, a Kyrgyz family coming. So it's quite an interesting polyglot of people that are coming here to Oshkosh.
Okay. I know one thing, and I just wanted to draw your attention to this because when I don't know where I saw World Relief Oshkosh, but I saw it somewhere, and that's what I did an internet search of, and I actually came up with a phone number that is not a working phone number.
It's old.
Yeah, and so then I had to do some more detective work and finally track you down.
Glad you did.
I think it was through an email originally that I tracked you down, and then someone from church got me a phone number or something as well. But so at one time, was there a World Relief Oshkosh that must have been here?
There was, for about a
Okay.
3-year period. The history on that is, I used to work with an organization called Shelter Now and Shelter for Life. We operated under two names.
Shelter Now, that's
You
what
remember
I
that?
was, yep, that's
Okay.
what I was familiar
In
with.
fact, your church was a sponsoring church. Saddam was still in power when we were working in the Kurdish protected zone up in the north after the first Gulf War. And we were one of the major implementing partners for the UN and for the US government in implementing their programs. As Saddam came across the border, we had to evacuate very hurriedly. And Shelter Now and 7 other organizations petitioned the Clinton White House at that time for special treatment or amnesty for many of our Iraqi employees who were implementing. They were the face of all of the US government programs. So they were quite endangered as Saddam was moving back into the Kurdish zone. And they agreed, and 7,000 Iraqi Kurds came to the United States. About 400 of them were our employees. We told anyone who had no family or other preferred destination that we would help them to resettle here in Oshkosh. And about 40 took us up on it. And First Congregational was one of the churches. I went to area churches, and we actually partnered with World Relief. I'd been on their board when I was working in Chicago in another life. And it was a tremendous experience. The community received them very warmly. They were, from every measurement, successful here.
Yeah.
And so the experience was so positive that the state refugee coordinator at that time asked us if we would just open an office and continue to resettle refugees into not just Oshkosh, but the Fox Valley.
So under the new organization then, Norm, how large of a staff do you have, and how are you funded?
Okay. Currently, I mean, the former office was small. There were just 3 people in it, and we opened for 3 years and then closed after 9/11. This office now, we've got 6 staff, 2 full-time and 4 part-time, 25 hours. We've got volunteers and interns from UW-Oshkosh. Most of the money, frankly, comes through a program called the Resettlement and Placement Program. It's a Department of State funded program through which the United States participates in the refugee resettlement process. There's about 26 million refugees globally, and about 0.5% of those a year get an opportunity to actually resettle into a third country. And the U.S. is one of those countries. Actually, we receive the largest share. We're not the only one. However, Canada, Australia, a number of the Western European countries also receive refugees. And so all of that is administered through a Department of State interface. The UNHCR, you may have heard that acronym, it stands for the United Nations High Commission for Refugees, has the international mandate for refugee protection. So our State Department works with UNHCR, and they actually process at about 6 processing centers around the world case files on refugees who have been given refugee status. It's actually a technical definition. A refugee is someone who has crossed an international border and cannot return home for real fear of persecution for political, ethnic, or religious reasons.
So if we use the adjective political refugee, that's kind of what we're talking about?
Yes, and I think you would find it's hard to actually draw the lines sometimes between a political or an ethnic or a religious refugee, because these issues are so complex and interwoven. But yes, that would be a pretty, an accurate way to describe a number of the people who've come here.
You talked off camera before about you had been many different places. Can you kind of summarize where you're from and some of the places you've been at?
Yeah, I grew up overseas, so I guess this was woven into my DNA.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Iran and India, Lebanon, Bangladesh, the Dominican Republic. I went to a boarding school in Switzerland for a while. So yeah, I lived in 6 countries growing up, and when I got older and ended up going into professional life, I worked with internationals in the city of Chicago, and then shifted and went into relief and development. So I've traveled to about at least 60 countries, maybe almost 70.
Your language skills must be very good.
I'm really good at English.
I'm
an expert at
we
English.
can't deal with anything else, so we're glad that's your best.
Yeah.
But you must speak fluently some other languages.
I wouldn't say fluently. I speak smatterings of several, yes.
Well, that's
I've
important.
had to use them, actually, as we brought in people.
That's what I was getting at.
Wow.
The challenge is most people in the world now want to learn English.
I know that.
And that makes
It's just so
temperate-
easy and
it is
lazy
indeed.
for us.
It
It
is
really
indeed.
is.
Yep,
20 years ago, you went to country, you tried to practice what their language was.
yep.
I got to Bulgaria, and this little kid says, I want to speak English.
Yeah,
I said, where are you learning English?
Yes.
TV.
yeah.
Wow.
You know, and I wanted to
Yes.
help me with Bulgarian. He didn't want to. He said you got to help me with English.
That's great.
Maybe you need to watch Bulgarian TV.
Yeah.
And that'll do it.
But I mean, your point is, that's true. We're spoiled, and it's all over.
We are spoiled. Yeah, English has become the international
Yeah.
language in many ways. Yeah.
85 folks that you've brought in so
Yes.
far this year, since about February, I
Yep.
think you said. How many folks can you bring in at a given time
Yeah.
into this particular community, for example?
Well, that's an excellent question. We were allotted 100 that would, in this fiscal year, be resettled here. We chose Oshkosh initially to resettle everyone in Oshkosh because we were just opening up and we knew the providers and the other stakeholders in the community. But we chose the name World Relief-Fox Valley intentionally because the larger economic and population unit that kind of stretches from Fond du Lac through Appleton and the Fox cities is where we'll be bringing refugees over coming years. Yeah, how many can can be absorbed? Let me just go and say for the last 2 months, we've had 60 people come. That is 60% of our annual allotment arrived in a 2-month period. That's probably too much. If there's anyone out there in W2 or the Public Health Department, you guys have been great. I know it's been a burden and challenging for a lot of people. Hopefully we will not have, we will not overburden, the case workers who have to kind of provide support. But
Well,
yeah.
that brings up a good point. You know, what is the biggest challenge for you folks? And conversely, what's the biggest challenge for the refugees?
Sure.
Because this is a whole new culture for them. It's a new language. It's new traditions, new cultures. You know,
Indeed.
what are the two
Well,
challenges
let's start with
for
the
each?
refugees because refugees are a very inspiring group of people. They are resilient. They're survivors. They're people who have, for every refugee that gets here, there are, let's just say, there's 0.5% of the refugee population annually gets a chance to resettle to the United States. So that's more stringent in terms of access than trying to get into Harvard. It's very, very few. They feel lucky to be here. They're very excited about the opportunity to come to the United States. They are wonderful to work with because if you ever felt like everything was going to pot, you would see our country and the world through fresh eyes if you come together with refugees, which, I mean, you have. You've worked with Tumsem and your church has befriended them in such a healthy way. So they're great to be around, but they need help. A lot of them come, they have language barriers, they're coming with issues. Some of them, they've not had access to really extensive school or training programs. Now some are coming with college degrees or from different kinds of environments. I don't want to overemphasize, the kinds of barriers that a refugee, each case is unique, let's put it that way.
And it probably runs the gamut then.
It does indeed.
Yeah.
But our idea is to connect them with local stakeholders, with churches and other community groups who can provide the kind of nurture and friendship and support that as professional caseworkers, we just don't have the time to do. The desire is there, but we can't be all that 85 people need other human beings in a strange place to be all at once.
Sure.
So the model of church sponsorship has really been a healthy one, and those that have been paired up with local churches or who've had kind of nurturing groups in the community that look out for them have really had an easier entry, let's put it that way.
Okay.
For us, go ahead.
No, go, you want to finish?
Yeah, for us, trying to kind of keep all those balls in the air is the biggest challenge, to try to connect people with friends and support networks by which they can become self-sufficient.
Okay.
I have family in Sweden, and Sweden takes about 25,000 Iraqis every year.
Yeah,
And of a population of 9.5 million, over 1 million are refugees.
that's
The Minister of immigration in Sweden said recently on television, the problem in Sweden is not immigration, the problem is integration.
Yes.
So my question to you is, when does your commitment of World Relief end, and when does the community responsibility begin? Is there a clear break-off at some point?
Technically, our contract with the Department of State is a 90-day contract.
A 90-day contract.
So we are responsible to actually get them an apartment, to get it outfitted and ready to live in, to pick them up at the airport, to bring them to that apartment and help them to kind of register for Social Security and connect with the different provider networks, whether those are schools or teach them how to bank. But it's a 90-day program. They give us a small amount of money that really belongs to the refugee to administer on their behalf during that period. Now, even though that's our technical commitment, our heart commitment is much greater. And so we're not going to, you love the people that come, you become their friends, you want to see them succeed, you want to connect them with opportunity and with others in the community. And so that's, it's an ongoing.
But your success isn't 100%.
Well, we're still early in that
with this
measurement
group,
process, yes.
But let's say after a year, a family comes here, and it's just not working. What happens?
Well, I mean, there can be scores of reasons for that. Okay, you get, as we just talked about earlier, as Cheryl mentioned, there's a whole range of kinds of people that come. Some people will come and they have different issues. They just are older, they can't learn the language, they don't have skills, it's more difficult for them to integrate. Usually people like that have kids. The kids integrate quickly, and the kids, as we saw with previous waves of refugees like the Hmong, become the social connectors.
That's a good example.
To their parents. And so that is a generational thing, it takes time. But we're actually, you brought up the example of Sweden, and just two comments on that. Number one, Sweden is a population of 9 million with 1 million refugees.
Correct.
And we take in 80,000 refugees a year in a population of about 250 million. So the scale at which some of these other countries are actually bringing refugees into their country is much, much larger. So we're not seeing...
You know what they ask me on that?
Tell me.
They say you destroyed Iraq, but we take thousands of Iraqis every year. How many does the United States take of Iraqis every year?
The United States, well, actually, that's a very good question, and that is set annually by Congress.
I don't have an answer for them, so you can give me one.
But we could actually find that out. I mean, I know that there's an 80,000 person ceiling in this fiscal year, 2012.
For all of the U.S.?
All of the U.S. And they also set ceilings on where those people can come from. So there is a number. And I think it's probably in the 30 to 40,000 range for Iraqis, but that's a guess. Please don't take me literally on that. That's a big number.
Even if it's not quite accurate,
and
that's a good
right.
answer.
You can find that out. I mean, that's open source information. So, but we have a second thing going for us. So that the proportion of refugees who come into our country are not nearly as enormous as in some of the Scandinavian countries that have been just enormously generous in so many ways. They've exhibited a charity and a humanitarianism and a compassion for suffering peoples that I think exemplifies what's good about human beings.
But the tension is really
tension is intense.
It's incredible.
And part of the challenge that they have is that many of those countries are monoethnic. They're very closed cultures. So to be a Swede is to be a citizen of Sweden, and everyone who's not a Swede is a very obvious different kind of person. Here in the U.S., we don't have that, not at all. From the beginning, we've been kind of a melting pot of different cultures and backgrounds, and so that creates an environment in which it's far easier for refugees to succeed, to integrate in the sense of succeeding as a part of our culture and a citizen of the United States without feeling like they have to become Swedish, and leave everything about their culture that they love and that is a part of their identity behind in order to integrate. So we have a lot better environment to avoid some of those kinds of problems.
Every place is different. Could you walk us through citizenship?
Sure.
How does this process work, and how long does it take?
Well, every refugee that comes into the United States is a legal immigrant. So when they come in, they're eligible from day one to work and for all of the benefits that American citizens have, with the exception that they are not eligible to travel outside of the country until they have their green card.
Okay.
So there's kind of a track that they go on, and there are requirements on that track where they have to kind of learn things about our country and be able to pass a test. And so there's a process, and we assist them with that, or other like-minded organizations do along the way. And yeah, I mean, they're eligible within a year or two to kind of get a green card and become citizens, and most will.
Explain the green card to us a little bit. What is it?
It's a permanent residency card.
Okay.
It actually allows a person to live and work in the United States and to enter and leave at will.
Okay.
So without the green card, you have to have a visa to get back into the United States. So refugees had what's called an I-94 visa. It's a refugee visa. And until they have the green card, they need to stay put. So we explain that to them. But yeah, green card is permanent resident status.
Not Social Security. They're not paying Social Security at this point with
Oh
the
no,
green card?
they are. One of the very first things that we do is get them a Social Security. We register them with Social Security. So any of the...
So if they work in the United States, part of their wages goes to Social Security?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
they're paying taxes.
Okay.
They have to follow the laws. And actually the term during what... There is a term in which the U.S. government provides to the states or other local providers some resources to help these people to kind of adjust, to have kind of a breathing space. But it's not as long as you might think. For those that are coming that are employable adults without children, for example, they have what's called refugee cash assistance. It's a very limited, meager amount of money that lasts for 8 months. And at the end of that, they're expected to be working. So nobody is, that benefit ends. So if they aren't working, they're in trouble. That's something that we are really working to help them with. And really, they're highly motivated. So, but nobody is giving people a free ride. People in the United States are expected to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, work hard, and I think these people show every evidence of connecting with that ethic and really succeeding at it.
Norm, let me play devil's advocate here. I know that there are some folks sitting at home saying, well, geez, here we got a bunch of people coming into this country and specifically into this area, and there's not enough jobs for us here, and we've got healthcare issues, and we've got money issues here, and now we got folks coming in, taking away jobs potentially, and taxing the healthcare system, so on and so forth. How would you respond to those folks?
Well, I think that is a very legitimate concern. I think all of us are worried about the economic situation. We recognize the pressure on social support institutions and the temptation, and it's a unfortunate one, however, to blame that on illegal immigrants or on refugees is not really based on actual facts and the economics involved in it. And typically, refugees are net contributors. After the Kurds, let's use them as an example. Your church participated. The individual, the family that you supported, this individual has been such a blessing in this community. Everybody uses him as a translator. He's become a great friend with people in your congregation. It's been a wonderful integration of people and cultures that in some ways is really only possible and only really seen in the United States. We have this kind of heritage of multi-ethnicism that makes us a stronger country. And I think it's not only about, it's not a zero-sum game, Cheryl. I think they create economic stimulus. They create new kinds of businesses. They bring initiative and ideas and drive that we lack and that we profit from. They bring a diversity in our community that enriches us. It helps us. They bring political protections even. I worked for 10 years off and on working in Afghanistan with programs in Afghanistan. Well, the problems that we experienced because of pulling away from that part of the world after the Russians collapsed and we didn't see a real interest in carrying on, became obvious in 9/11. If we do not engage in the world when we are a world leader, some of our decisions to do that may come back to bite. And some of the most valuable contributions to our national security currently are being made by refugees from Afghanistan who came over from Pakistan during that period, or people who have Arabic language or cultural skills right now who also love America and believe in our values and political systems. And so that is that's a real positive and important reason why we should welcome some of these folks.
We're almost out of time. We've only got about 2.5 minutes left, which
Sure.
isn't anywhere near the amount of time that I'd like to have, because I know we've got other questions.
Okay, good.
But very briefly, do these folks have like sponsor families or host families that kind of help guide them along their way long after that 90-day period is exceeded?
Some do and some don't,
Okay.
Cheryl. I mean, that's one thing. If listeners are out there who have that interest or just sense, hey, maybe I could do this, it's not really difficult. The most work-intensive period is right in the beginning when we're setting up an apartment. But we even have families without sponsors currently that we could pair interested congregations or people with.
Sure.
It's absolutely the case that after that 90-day period, we're hopeful that the relationships they develop with longer-term stakeholders in the community will continue to nurture them and provide that support. And so.
And we've been putting, I think, at least I hope we've been putting up the website address during the course of this segment, but it is www.wr.org.
Yes.
Just very simply, wr.org. And if they go to that website, I'm sure that they can find ways that they can help and so forth. What are some of the more immediate needs?
Sure.
And does that change over the course of their 90 days?
Yeah, just a short disclaimer, the wr.org is the main organizational website, and we are in the process of posting our office as in the drop-down U.S. office menu.
Okay.
You won't find us there yet, but
It's coming.
yes.
But some general information on World Relief
Oh
is
yeah,
there.
a lot on the programs, on the history of the organization, sure. And yeah, some of the needs we have, we really need sponsors. We need volunteers. We need people who are willing to give refugees a chance if they've got employment opportunities that perhaps may not even be the most desirable. You know what I mean? Particularly refugees who may not have perfect English skills. They can clean hotel rooms, or There are also needs for people who can volunteer their time, who can help refugees get to and from medical appointments, for example, or social service appointments. We've just been totally inundated with the numbers that have come in, and it's hard logistically for a small staff to service all the needs that are there. To teach refugees to drive, that's a huge one. I mean, we're living in a winter area, and every one of the refugees is learning the bus system. That's part of what we do, but the buses don't run on Sunday or after 6 o'clock.
Right.
And in the wintertime, it's actually nice to drive. So those are real important ways in which we can contribute, and that is beyond our capacity as a small staff to really be able to do for every one of the refugees. And
Right.
we could go on down a long list.
Right. Well, we didn't have this number before this, but let me just put this phone number out there. If you want to get in touch with World Relief Fox Valley, the number is 231-3600. Again, that's 231-3600. You've got an office over on Washington Avenue.
We
Is that
do.
in the Washington building right across from the library?
Next
or
door to it.
Next door to
It's
that.
in the
Okay.
old Redeman building, Paul
Okay.
Redeman's, and we're in the back.
Okay.
So
But
there's
sort
I know where
of
that is.
catty corner from the library then,
exactly.
sort of.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
I know where that is.
So.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, very good. Well, hopefully, you can generate some interest from this appearance here, and
Thanks so much for
some
having
folks
me.
can
You're
come
welcome.
and
It's been
help
great.
It's a
out.
very good
So,
presentation.
Oh,
yes,
it's
I
been
learned
really
a lot.
very, very good.
It's
Truly.
been
Yeah.
great fun.
Good.
All right,
Maybe we
terrific.
could come back with refugees sometimes.
You
I
could.
think that's
Yeah.
a good idea.
Wouldn't that be fun?
Yes,
See
it would.
how
Oh, I've
they've
got some
managed
really
to get in.
articulate ones,
Yeah.
so that will be.
Oh, that's a good idea.
All right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to take a very short break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking to Steve Vickman from the Oshkosh Area Community Food Pantry. So we'll be right back.
Every year, the U.S. Department of the Treasury receives about 1.4 million reports of problems with paper checks. Checks can be lost, stolen, or delayed. If you still receive Social Security payments by paper check, Treasury wants you to know about a safer, more convenient way to get your money. The Direct Express Prepaid Debit MasterCard. The Direct Express card is new and is available to anyone receiving Social Security benefits, even if you don't have a bank account. Your monthly benefits will be automatically placed onto your card account each month on the day your money is due. While other debit cards cost money, it is possible to use the Direct Express card for free to make purchases, pay bills, and get cash at thousands of locations nationwide. There are no sign-up or monthly account fees. No more waiting for the mail or worrying about lost or stolen checks. Call 1-877-212-9991 or visit www.usdirectexpress.com.
Welcome back to Eye on Oshkosh, and Steve Vickman is here now. Steve is an old friend of the program, and he's been on several times over the course of the last, we were just talking, I think probably 4 years or so. Yeah. Steve is the executive director of the Oshkosh Area Community Food Pantry, and the reason we've had him on tonight is because he has recently announced his resignation. You're moving on to other things and literally moving out of the community, and so we wanted to have you on one last time, sort of as a swan song farewell kind of thing, and you know, just to kind of have you kind of take us back down the the road here of memories of the pantry, and then maybe talk a little bit about where you're going in the future. So anyway, thanks for being here.
Welcome, Steve.
And,
Thanks.
Yeah, we kind of, I think, expected that this day was coming when you would be tendering your resignation. Your wife Patty left the school district not all that, it seems like not all that long ago, but it's been several months, and has taken a job as a school superintendent in another district, and so, you know.
She's doing very well and loves the job and just
Good.
is really excited to be, in her hometown community,
Yeah.
and really, come full circle and make a difference with those folks. So.
Yeah, but you can only have a long distance and weekend kind of marriage for so long, and so we expected that sooner or later this day would be coming. And so when is your final day at the food pantry?
That's a little hard to say. Our board has recently made an offer to someone to become the new executive director, and we expect that person to start September 4th.
Okay.
They haven't really made a formal announcement yet about it, but and I'm going to be spending some time, the month of September and beyond that. Officially, my real last day is like November 4th, but I'll be available if they need me, and hopefully they won't need me too much. But so we will have some overlap so that we can make sure that we're making all those connections and that there'll be little, not a whole lot of difference whether I'm there or my successor's there, we hope. So.
Okay. Well, certainly, I think, you know, you've done a wonderful job with the pantry, and you do leave some pretty big shoes to fill, I think, for the
Well,
next
thank you.
person.
Appreciate that.
And of course, we're going to want to have that person on when they, you know, start. Not immediately, but you know, we'll let them get.
We'll give them a day or two.
Yeah,
Okay.
let them get their bearings a little bit. But you know, let them know that that we'll be calling on them, and so that we can kind of, you know, A, help introduce them to the community, but B, you know, sort of get their vision of where they'd like the pantry to go, or if you know they have some other ideas on things that they'd like to do there or what have you. But you know, of the things that you've done over the course of the last 4 years, has it been 4 years, or
It'll be my last day, November 4th, will be exactly 4 years
Really?
when I started.
was that intentionally planned?
No.
Just kind of coincidental.
Yes.
Interesting though. So coming up on 4 years very quickly, how have you seen the food pantry change during those 4 years?
Well, first of all, I think just the volume. I think none of us, when we started out, you know, we were in the basement of Trinity Episcopal Church there for 20 years. We were ecumenical food pantry originally, and I don't think anybody saw coming what was coming. And of course, that was, you know, November of 2008, and that was really, you know, at the height of when the economic free fall occurred, and of course we saw that increase for, you know, a little over 2 years, and every month it was an increase after increase, and we finally seen now some of that letting off the gas pedal a little bit. We're seeing some improvement, but you know, we at one time hit 2,291 families that we served. I think that was in September of last year.
Wow.
And now, you know, we've seen a little bit of a fall off since then, but I mean, that's a lot
That's
of
amazing.
folks. And we will give out about 1.3 million pounds of food this year. When we were at Ecumenical Pantry, I think we gave out about 70,000 pounds a year. We give out that much in about 2/3 of a month now, so the need is tremendous. I think that's the biggest thing that surprised us. But fortunately, we were there. We were able to really hit the ground running and really to meet the need that was there. And to be honest with you, I think the easiest part for us, you know, I think by any measure, what we've been very successful in being able to distribute a lot of food. I think that's been the easy part. You know, and that's one part of the mission of our organization. The other part, I think, is a lot more tricky, and that's how do we help people to become more independent, self-sufficient, and contributing members of our community. And, you know, that's the part of the mission, I think, that, you know, we've found a lot of different avenues to try to do that. But, you know, it's been a little piecemeal, and I think, you know, the organization going forward has to work a little harder to find out how we can connect everybody to those resources that are really going to help them to be more independent. You know, we have some great programs. You know, we have our Backpack for Kids program. We're doubling the size of that this year. We're probably going to be doing 600 children every year. Every week, we'll be doing the backpacks, delivering them to 6 schools in the community. We have a home delivery service. We have a cooking program for adults, and then we're going to have a new on OCAT, hopefully in fall here, Cooking with Kids program. We're very grateful to the Women's Fund of the Oshkosh Area Community Foundation. They've funded this program, and we think it can really have an impact. You know, we want to meet kids, you know, change habits at an early age, because there's a lot bigger bang for the buck if you're trying to teach children than some old guy like me the ins and outs of nutrition and eating right and cooking. So we're working we have several partners we're working with. One is UW Extension, who will actually be the nutrition specialist there, will be teaching the class. So we think those types of things can be more impactful and have a broader impact on the community and have a more long-lasting effect. But that's really the struggle for our organization and a lot of nonprofits. How do we move people to independence? And because we don't want them to visit the pantry every week, every
Right.
month. So,
Well, that Cooking with Kids thing sounds really exciting because, you know, I don't want to call them latchkey kids, but let's face it, we do have a lot of kids spending a lot more time alone these days
Yep.
because both parents are working when you have both parents in existence in a household. And, you know, if you only have a one-parent household, then that parent is obviously, in most cases, out there working too. So they're still spending a great deal of time alone before and after school.
Yeah, and I think, targeting, those gaps in the community is really important. Where do we get the biggest bang for the buck, and where are the gaps? We think it's with children, and on the other end of the spectrum with some of our seniors, especially some of the homebound folks. So, we have a homebound delivery service that we do in rural parts of the county right now. And so I think it's important to target and be more specific to where you think that we can really make a bigger impact. And again, I think we do a great job, in what we provide, to people. When we started, I think the average person who came to the pantry got about 42 pounds of food a week. I think last month it was over 56 pounds. So we've been able to expand our capacity, find a lot more donors willing to give us stuff for free, which is F is always my favorite F word kind of. And that's really been part of our success, is being able and willing to collaborate with just about anybody who wants to collaborate with us, because there's no way an organization like ours can do it on their own. Just no way. And we've been tremendously blessed by very generous donors, by very generous people who want to volunteer their time with us. We have over 250 volunteers who volunteer at the pantry, and like last month, I think it was around like 1,200 hours that they donated to us. And if you figure that out, according to what that is per hour, it's over $20,000, just in donated time to us in any given month. So the community is tremendously supportive, and we're so grateful for everything that people have done for the pantry.
You're a sociologist's dream to talk to Steve Vickman and get into your mind and insights of the socioeconomic characteristics of the people that you're serving. Who are they?
There is a large group that's always going to need our help in this community, and we see them, I think if you walk down Main Street in a lot of days, you could see some of those folks. But there's always going to be that group who's going to need our help. And it's a lot of people who are disabled, who have, maybe they have learning disabilities or a whole range of disabilities. And those folks will always need help. We understand that. And that's probably half the people that we see in a given month, in my estimate. But, the other group is our friends and neighbors. Those are folks who probably never thought they would need our help. Grandma and grandpa. It's young families, which is really, to me is really troubling when I see the young families coming in and really needing assistance. And the reality is many of the jobs out there for them are low-wage jobs, and $22,050 is what a family of four needs just for subsistence in Winnebago County. That's the poverty line. And if you're making the minimum wage, if you're working in a low-wage service job, it's just not happening for you. And so those are the folks who are having to come into the pantry to get help, just to make a go of it, just to survive. And many of those folks are very embarrassed to have to come in. And that's probably the one thing that I am the most proud of, is that the organization, the volunteers, everybody has tried to treat people with dignity when they come in our doors. And hopefully, I think we're generally successful that, the whole, how you even come and shop, it's a more dignified approach, and hopefully we treat you, better than I would treat my family when you come in the doors, I think. And I think that's what I'm really the most proud of, all of our volunteers and everybody who works for us, that they've done.
That's a great answer. I'm going to hit you on a personal thing here. What are your greatest accomplishments personally? And don't be modest.
I think, that I've set a tone for the organization. And I think that's always to be willing to take a chance, hopefully a calculated chance, and knowing that if you're doing the right thing, people will support you. Because I've never looked back. I can remember when the first day I started at the pantry, and I talked to my board president, and I said, Mary, where where do we have our bank account? And she said, well, we don't really have a bank account, Steve. I said, well, if we did have a bank account, how much money would we have in it? Well, that would be nothing. You know, so the message was clear. You got to sing for your supper, buddy, or you're not getting paid. So, you know, I think that, you know, putting programs out there, providing a framework, I think the community supports things where they look at it and they say, yes, that organization is providing us with a social value. And I think that's the thing that I'm most proud of, that I've been open to change, open to collaborate with anybody who wants to be our partner, really. And we've really, you know, I think we've made a difference in the lives of people. We've helped to sustain families. I don't know, you know, it would be interesting to see 20 years down the road, you know, what the difference that we made is, because you can't see it when it's this close to you right now. But I think, you know, by sustaining families, hopefully they will be able to become productive members of the community who will in the future be able to give back and, you know, just be contributing members here. And that's what we really want. We want everybody, you know, to be an important member of the community. I think that's what our goal is, somebody who is valued and feels good about what they do. You know, and, you know, one of the things I'm really proud of is that we invite all of our guests to also be volunteers. And I think that's huge for a lot of these folks, because they've never felt like they've been part of something larger than themselves. And that's really huge. And in their lives, it makes a difference. It's transformative in their lives. And I look back at some of those people and I, you know, I kind of smile, you know, because I feel really good about, you know, them having the opportunity to give back and, you know, feel that they are very important to what we do.
Now this is the pastoral in you, isn't it?
The pastoral, the priest wannabe.
Yeah, and we've talked about that before. I don't mean to embarrass you, but isn't this is a great pastoral thing that you've done?
You know, I've really been blessed to be able to do this. I honestly, this was the greatest opportunity of my life, and I hope whatever I do in the future, I hope it's a great opportunity also, but it's going to be tough to top.
Yeah.
You know, being able to start an organization from the ground up and to walk away from it and say, yeah, I'm pretty darn proud of what we did here.
See, I call you Father Steve. I've done that before, you know that. But I really think the pastoral thing, and I think your background and your religious thing, I think have all added to this. I really do. You're like a bishop of Oshkosh, you know, with this, look at the size of your congregation. Yeah? I'll shut up. But I really think
You are embarrassing me now, Dave.
Well, I wanted to a little bit.
And we want to talk about, you know, what your goals are for the future, certainly, what your vision is. But, you know, when you talk about the various people that you've served at the food pantry and things like that, and I should say also, I'm so pleased to see all these other programs that you guys have, because it's not just about going in and getting you know, your food for the week. You really are trying to, as you alluded to before, talk about helping people become self-sufficient, and your wife was instrumental in helping with a self-sufficiency project as well. But, you know, as you kind of look at the food pantry and so forth, you know, what do you think its future will be? You've talked about that a little bit.
Okay.
And I know it isn't really all up to you.
Yeah, it really is. It really isn't. So I can speak freely because it really isn't up to me. But I think we need to become more of an umbrella organization where you can, I mean, and part of it is really good that we're in the same building with St. Vincent de Paul, because they do so much wonderful charitable work themselves, and they, you know, everything that they earn, they give back in a charitable way to the community. So, I mean, I think that makes sense in the building, in the setting that we're in, but I think we need to become that one-stop shop. You know, I had an agency, somebody called me up a day a few weeks ago and said, I heard that you can give dental care for my son. And I said, what? and we've partnered with the Tri-County Community Dental Clinic. They're coming out to the pantry a couple times here in the month of August. But this was like an emergency situation, and I'm kind of scratching my head and thinking, well, why did that agency tell them to call me? And it was just fortunate that I answered the phone that day, and I said, well, here's a number to Bob Glass at Tri-County Community Dental Clinic. You know, you can schedule an appointment. This sounds like an emergency situation. And I think what happens to a lot of folks in the community is they're falling through the cracks. They don't know where to go. They may go to the church, and the church secretary may or may not know where to send them sometimes. And so, you know, we're engaging right now in a conversation with a lot of community partners and talking about what's the best way to really be to provide those services, and how can we do that in a better way? Because right now it seems to be piecemeal. Your guest who was just on prior to me, I mean, I think that for the refugees, I think that's huge that they could come to one spot and do all those things. You know, you could register for food share. You could register for, you know, benefits for seniors and all those kind of things. And we've tried to do that. Like right now, we do register people for food share benefits on site, but you know, the model that I really like is the Levin type organization, which works out of the Fox cities, you know, and they've been in business for over 25 years, and they do more case management type work where, you know, they will actually sit down, help you fill out the application in the form rather than just say, here's the number to call. You know, they will make the call for you, and it's more case management, and they can also provide some emergency assistance if you need diapers. You know, we can give you diapers, but more than anything, it's helping people to connect them to those resources. And I think, you know, a lot of times folks just get kicked, the can gets kicked down the road, and we're not really dealing with it. And honestly, many of our volunteers are not trained to deal with it, and nor are other organizations. So I think that there needs to be a more comprehensive approach to how we deal with it, and the record keeping that like an organization like Levin does. You know, they track these people, and you know, they're working a lot more with the different organizations. They can pick up the phone if my power is about to get cut off and say, hey, Joe down at the power company, do you think you could extend this another month? Because they have those kind of connections that they can do that kind of stuff. So I think that's, if that would be my dream, that we would become more of that type of organization, or at least have those services cited at the pantry. Not that we have to become the Levin of Oshkosh, but that, you know, we can help to foster that type of organization developing here.
A wraparound program.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
You talked before about how it would be interesting to see 15, 20 years down the road from now how these people are doing, and you know, ideally to see what kind of an impact, positively, hopefully, that you've made on their lives. You guys have only been in existence about 4 years, but there have been food pantries in Oshkosh for many, many, many years. Do you know, have any kinds of longitudinal studies been done to see what kind of an impact it has made in people's lives?
I think that's kind of the problem, is that, you know, we don't really have the resources to do that kind of, you know, we're like a two-man or one-man, one-woman shop plus our 250 volunteers. So, you know, we haven't in 4 years been able to do that, but I think it is important that as we mature as an organization that we try to find a way of doing that. I don't think that it's been really studied here in Oshkosh. I mean, I think we have the Life Study, which is commissioned by the United Way and the Community Foundation and other partners, but and so they can see, they're very good at identifying progress and gaps. But I don't think, you know, anybody has really done that kind of study, but I think it needs to be done.
Well,
great thing for somebody at UWO.
Yeah,
to
it's
be
really an
Yeah.
academic research
And
project.
plus, what you're doing now is really kind of been a game changer, I think, because, you know, years ago, it was just you go in with a voucher or whatever, and you get a certain allotment of food, and that was the extent of what you got at the food pantry, I'm assuming. But now, as we've been talking about, you do offer so many other services.
Yeah, and I just read
that better help sustain people.
Yeah, and I just read there's just a national, I think it was by Spotlight on Poverty. It just came out last week or the week before, and it was just so timely because it was exactly about this, that food pantries need to be more than just places to give out food, because they are the entry point for so many people in the social service area. I mean, and you're touching so many lives. You know, if we're touching 2,000 families a month, I mean, we are the place that you should be coming to. So, I mean, it makes sense on so many levels. And again, we have a wonderful partner, St. Vincent de Paul, which I think also sees themselves as a community center for this type of activity. So again, the more we can partner with other people who want to do this, and it's really about getting a lot of buy-in from the other organizations that provide services to people. It's not just, in no way is it just about what we want to do, but it needs to be what the community sees needs to be done.
Sure. We've got, did you have like a real quick question before we get into kind of what he wants to do in the future? Because we're down to about 3 minutes.
I want you to say hi to Patty.
Well, of course,
Okay.
yes.
I worked under her for 2 years, a great lady, wonderful principal. But let's go ahead with what he's going to do in the future.
Yeah, because we've got about 2.5 minutes
yeah.
left, and so
He's not going to tell
you
us,
know,
but let's,
you know, I mean, you've sort of alluded to what you'd like to do. You know, get it on the ground floor or something. But you know, if you could create your own position, you know,
Ooh.
what would it be?
good question. President.
Oh,
Well, unlike what Dan says, I'm really not planning to start my own church, but you know, I think you know, again, I'm not sure what I'm going to do.
It's hard.
You know,
Point.
but you know, I would like to be able to take some of the skills that I've learned over the last 4 years and the previous 31 before that, you know, and I'd like to continue working in the nonprofit field, you know, and I don't know where that's going to take me right now. I really don't. I don't know that I have an ideal job. I don't think I want to start another food pantry. I'm pretty sure of that. But I think that, you know, I'm looking forward very much to whatever window is going to open for me in the near future. So hopefully there'll be some great stuff out there.
okay. And you know, the legacy, I guess, that you're leaving behind with the Oshkosh Area Community Food Pantry. I mean, we've talked about it. You know, treating people with respect and dignity, and letting them, your clients, your customers, your guests, whichever word you want to use to describe them, be a part of your organization rather than being a part of or apart from, rather. You know, anything else that you're really proud of that, you know, has kind of been something that Steve Vickman has put his SV stamp on?
Well, you know, it really, there's nothing that I put my SV stamp on, because I've just been grateful for the support that so many people have given us, and you know, just to be there to be the orchestra conductor has just been the greatest thing in my life. You know, it's been a wonderful experience for me, and I'm just grateful that I had the opportunity to do it. So, you know, I leave with a lot of humility, understanding that it's a lot of other people who made it happen, not me. So
That's Steve Vickman, Father Steve.
Yeah. Well, you will certainly be missed,
Yeah.
you know,
Thank you.
by
Yeah,
so
very
many
much
in this
so.
community. Your staff, the people who utilize your organization, by us.
Yeah.
Who are we going to have on this show now in
Yeah.
the future?
And what a job well done.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's our best way of saying goodbye, Steve.
And,
Thank you.
and
Yeah.
so, best wishes to you
Yeah.
in the future,
Yeah.
in whatever you
Yeah.
choose to pursue, and give our best to Patty as
Yeah.
well.
okay, I sure will.
So, thank you so much
Thanks.
Hey.
for
Thank you.
everything. All right?
See you.
Thank you,
Hey,
Dan.
You bet.
All right. And that's going to do it for us. We will see you next time. Until then, take good care. Keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh. Bye.